Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Thursday to you, May 22nd, 2025. I have all of your stories for your rush hour ride home. And pat yourself on the back, you made it. I mean, tomorrow's Friday, but it's Memorial Day weekend, so does it even matter? You might have to go to work. Don't take a sick day tomorrow. Show up, mail it in, save those sick days for another time, right? Ride this one out. Quiet quit. All right, but either way, I've got all your stories today. We'll discuss Pope home, the NFL rule, the tush push, and Diddy trial updates. Plus, Blake, a no nightmare, so says a hairstylist. And then more information on the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni saga as Taylor Swift's subpoena quash is due today if she decides to do that. And then more on the tax cuts for the ultra wealthy and why this is going to hurt the lower and middle class. And then some updates on the issues going on in Gaza. Lots to get into. All these stories and more starts right now on The Rush. Why don't we begin with a Bachelor story? It's been rumored that Bachelor Grant and his winner, Juliana, are calling it quits. Well, they are denying that. Rumors be running wild lately, so says Juliana. Again, it's probably because, there's nothing else to talk about in Bachelor Nation, but I wish them well, and if it doesn't work out, that's fine too. You'll just be fine. All right, let's move it on here. A big update from ABC World News regarding a home that was the childhood home of the new Pope, Pope Leo. Have a listen.
Real estate showdown over Pope Leo XIV's childhood home in Dolton, Illinois. His family owned the house for nearly 50 years. The current owners want to sell it at auction to the highest bidder. Village officials offering to buy it directly or take it through eminent domain. They want the house to be an historic site open to the public to visit.
I love how they called it village officials. It's like, calm down. You're a town. The local elders. Yeah, look, there's going to be a bidding war. He was the Pope. Who doesn't want to shower in the same fountain that the Pope used? Will I get the same treatment when I move out of my house? There'll be a bidding war for the podcaster, Dave Neal here from Rush Hour. I don't think so. I don't think I'll get the Pope treatment, but that's okay. It's just a wild time to be alive that we have a U.S. Pope. I don't think people properly understand how big that is. You know what I mean? Like the guy went to college here. A professor taught the Pope. You know what I mean? Somebody, the Pope, there's some local guy who runs a falafel stand that's like, oh my gosh, the Pope used to eat here. There's going to be signs popping up everywhere. We've served the Pope. Pope approved. Maybe he listens to the Rush Hour podcast. I don't know. I don't know if he does or not. Pope, if you're listening, Pope Leo, call in, right? You cannot buy the type of press that the AllAmerican Rejects are getting right now. They are a lesson for all brands out there. Give some stuff away for free and let the abundance flow in. So Vulture has this story. The AllAmerican Rejects think house parties can fix the broken concert industry. So if you haven't been following, things are going absolutely wild. Here's a video from last night. People breaking down a fence so they can sneak in to the house party in Nashville. This is so rock and roll. Now, hopefully they can, donate some money to get this fence fixed. But, these are my millennials, right? Someone showed up with a crowbar. They're like, what are you going to do? Break into a car? No, I'm breaking into Susan's house. I want to go watch the Rejects perform. And here they were last night to a packed crowd. And they almost had to shut the party down because someone leaked the address ahead of time. Have a listen. And by the way, you got your thing going on when the crowd can sing and perform for you, That'd be like if I showed up to a live podcast event and the audience just started ranting for me and I'm like, I don't have to do anything. This is great. So either way, it's been absolutely wild. And in this article, they describe how this all started just a couple weeks ago. We took $50,000 out of our own pockets, booked a bus, put the crew salary on, and started this wild sort of ride. I've read something about people financing festival tickets, the complete inaccessibility of the concert experience in 2025 and how it's juxtaposed against these wild and weird economic times. It blows my mind that our shows can still work. And of course, they're doing their QR code so people sign up for their mailing list. So they're giving away a couple weeks worth of shows. This is going to propel them for years to come. And they talk about how this is reactive. They played a show at a university in Southern California a couple weeks ago for a local college radio station just at the start of the month. And then it went so well Then they played a show at No Vacancy, just some LA rock and roll place. But then the guest list for No Vacancy turned into a bunch of stiffs and corporate stooges. And they were like, this is gross. It's an industry-driven town, right? And I relate as a comedian. You don't want to perform in front of industry. You want to perform in front of fans, people that are there to laugh, that are ready to party, that want to rage. So they decided we'd rather perform in someone's dusty backyard, with the neighbor's dog barking, than perform in an actual rock venue. That's so cool. He says the night was so cinematic. So they're getting this Project X style energy from all of when they are able to track the amount of impressions that they're getting for this, it is better than any half-filled arena that Katy Perry is selling out. Or I should say not selling out. No offense, Katy Perry. So they talk about that, they were 4 kids that weren't cool, and now and back in the day, they got to play at a high school party. They became cool. This is that moment. Turn this into a movie, right? That moment where you're just kind of kids who learn a little guitar because you weren't really piped into the social world and you just wanted to strum a couple strings. And then next thing you know, you're the cool kid who can play a tune. And now they get to give back and they say, I felt so cool. And what is cool? Cool is a sense of belonging, feeling like you're contributing to society in one way or another. And I'm just so pumped for them to be telling their story. They said these giant artists, Katy Perry, I'm not going to say her name, Katy Perry, aren't really selling out their shows anymore. And they pay for these arenas to make it look like they did. And, maybe even Beyonce too. I think Beyonce's having a hard time moving tickets. So they talk about, the other night, there was a little bit of a weather issue. It was raining and they couldn't do the outdoor show. So they call a local bowling alley. Hey, can we perform there? And they said, nobody's here. You can do whatever you want. And I guess when you're in Minnesota, you can just go to a local bowling alley. So again, they crush it. They're literally getting crowd surfed into the drop ceilings. Everyone's wearing the bowling shoes. Some guy's huffing the bowling shoe spray. Don't do that. And now the guy says, you made our summer and you saved our bowling alley. This is what I'm talking about. This is what the Rush Hour is all about. Showing cool ass, fun stories about people making stuff happen. I am such a fan of AllAmerican Rejects. I thought I was before, but now I'm an official groupie. Send me a t-shirt. Come on. All right, let's move it on to some other stuff here. There was a attempt in the NFL to have a ban of what's called the tush push. It's like a goal line play where you push people into the end zone. The tush push is also a move you could do to try to get backstage at an AllAmerican Rejects show. But hey, it doesn't always work. You got to be hot if you want to do the tush push. Either way, Andrew Whitworth here explains that he's got no issue with the controversial play. It's not one of those plays that's going to cause any extra brain damage. It's a bunch of grown men pushing each other, to get a pigskin across the goal line. So they keep that. But here's an interesting story here I wanted to share. Jen Sturger, speaking of the NFL, was on Reality Steve's podcast today. So I encourage everyone to go check it out. Reality Steve turning 50 years old this week. Oh boy, half a century, Steve. Doesn't look a day over 49 if you ask me. Either way, interviews Jen Sturger about her time working with Brett Favre. There's a new documentary coming out called The Fall of Favre. And Brett Favre, kind of a creepy guy, kind of a piece of crap for a lot of reasons. And you're going to see that in the documentary. But he basically sent her his nude photos, a DP, a dick pic, as it calls, not a tush push, a dick pic, sends it to her, and then somehow she's the one who kind of got fired afterwards.
It was just so humiliating, and I felt like I had done something wrong. And because there's this thing that I think I learned a lot about when I was in college. It was actually my last class I took when I was in college was a class called victimology.
Wow.
And I had a criminology, psychology double major. And I remember one of the takeaways from this class was if you had experienced any kind of childhood trauma, or especially, in a sexual nature, you were more likely to continue to be a victim of those type of things the rest of your life, unless you did something about it. You know what I mean? It's just like victims stay victims until they figure out how to develop better coping strategies.
Very interesting stuff again, it's not blaming the victim. It's going, what am I doing to attract this into my life? And again, that doesn't mean she did anything wrong there. But I think it's interesting to hear the perspective of someone trying to because they always say the different levels of enlightenment. One is like how you react to a situation. Then the next level is how do you avoid that situation altogether? How do you, and again, it's not to blame a victim whatsoever, because in most cases, there's nothing they could have done. And in her case, she was working for an organization as like a reporter, right? As like a sideline reporter, I believe, or working, I think, with the Jets. And he just starts, cranking out some photos for her. So there's nothing she could have done wrong there. And good for her for finally speaking out about it, because I'm sure when you're working in the sports world and you're a woman, you probably in the past have had to deal with a lot of stuff like that. And there should be standard workplace rules where if you whistle blow someone's cranking out a dick pic, that you're not the one who gets in trouble for it. So justice for Jen Sturger. All right, coming up next, I'm going to share this clip we have from Kristen Cavaleri's podcast about Taylor Swift, Blake Lively, and then we have a little bit more to discuss regarding the sham lawsuit. All of that coming right after this. Interesting tea spilled by Hollywood hairstylist Justin Anderson here with Kristen Cavaleri regarding Blake Lively and vibes he got from her versus Taylor Swift. And then after that, we'll share a little bit more on the pending lawsuit.
Swift fan. I have met her in person. I think she's a wonderful person. I think Taylor really does get bamboozled by bad people.
Yeah.
I think Taylor gets excited about new friends. And I think that
she's too nice.
She's too nice. And the thing is, it's because here's the thing. People will say to me, they're like, Justin, you love Taylor Swift so much, but I can't stand Blake Lively for reasons. I have reasons why I cannot stand the woman. And I've heard it for years. And I always say in Hollywood, if you hear it over and over that someone is an absolute nightmare, at some point it's going to come out. So when this whole thing came out about Blake Lively, there wasn't even a part of me. It was like, oh my God. I was like, oh, of course. I've been hearing about it for years.
Yeah, so again, when collectively speaking, usually the truth rises to the top, right? Justin Baldoni seems like a good guy. Nobody's got any bad news on him. And yet Blake Lively, people want to come and share receipts. I know you could say, well, this is some misogynistic thing where women are teared down. But he's saying, no, he doesn't feel that way about Taylor Swift at all. I mean, Taylor Swift, what is she guilty of? Well, she makes cinnamon bread for the players on the Kansas City Chiefs, right? She stands up for things she believes in, even if it affects her bottom dollar. She's advocated for LGBTQ rights. She's done, she's huge when it comes to homeless shelters and feeding food banks. Every town she performs in, she donates more than anything they've ever received. I mean, she's got every record in the Guinness Book for that sort of charitable good that she has done, right? She has that track record. There's really no beef other than Caddy, oh, I don't like her, or she's, too famous, she's not that talented, you know what I mean? There's no beef anyone has with Taylor Swift. With Blake Lively, it goes back and it goes back far. I mean, including people I've worked with that worked with her. My wife and I both worked on Gossip Girl. We were background and stand-ins and extras, so we didn't have any personal experience, but she didn't exactly wow anybody.
Really, from people who are really, really close to her, it's a known thing, in the beauty world, makeup artists,
everybody
hairdressers,
talks.
Everyone who's on sets and stuff, everybody's always talked about what a nightmare she is. So it's going to come out at some point. People are like, you don't like Blake so much, how can you like Taylor if she's her best friend? I'm like, I don't think that means anything. I think also in Hollywood, there's a hierarchy thing. Taylor is the much more famous one in that friendship. Mm-hmm. So Blake is kissing Taylor's ass all the time. So Taylor's seeing the best version of Blake.
Oh, such a good thing to analyze. You got to judge people by how they treat people beneath them. Right? Are they tipping waitstaff appropriately? Are they being kind to people they can't get anything from? That's how you judge people. And it could be that Blake Lively is just a cool girl to Taylor Swift. She's fun, she's charitable, whatever. And it could be Blake Lively's the type who just throws her stuff at her assistant and then other people have to deal with her garbage. And again, when you get famous at such a young age like Blake did to an extent, you get these assistants on set, you're treated a certain way. But hey, Taylor Swift had fame even earlier, and yet somehow she still has a sensibility to her. And maybe you could argue that there was at least a couple years where Taylor Swift was on the up and up, where she was grinding it out before she reached her fame, and maybe she's got more of a center to her. But I think what it really comes down to is imposter syndrome. Taylor Swift is so famous, she probably doesn't have any doubts about her fame, whereas Blake Lively's kind of famous, but not as famous as her husband and her pop star friend. So maybe Blake Lively feels like she's entitled or needs to have the control around her more than Taylor does. I don't really know. Either way, interesting to hear from a hairstylist, though, because everybody talks to a hairstylist. All right, let's hear from Ask Two Lawyers. It's been a few weeks since they've covered the case, and now they're discussing the sham lawsuit and what Justin Baldoni and Brian Friedman, his attorney, might do to reintroduce this crazy extortion claim that they have.
But again, Brian Friedman has done nothing with the sham lawsuit. He has made no filing. He's made taken no strategic position with the court regarding that. And so until he does, I'm not sure how big a deal that really is at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that we're going to see something. I would expect to see something, but I am a little surprised that we haven't yet. But I would be really interested to see the deposition of whoever the insider was.
And now we know the insider, according to Candace Owens, was Taylor Swift's father, right? Taylor Swift's father. That's the insider that alerted Brian Friedman, the whistleblower, alerted Brian Friedman that Blake Lively tried to extort Taylor Swift and said, I'll share 10 years of text messages. We don't know exactly how Blake did that. She could have said it as a friendly way. She could have been like, hey, Taylor, you better stick up for me because if this thing goes to trial, they're going to subpoena my phone and see all of our text messages. Which, again, whether you're doing it in a friendly and coercive way or not, I would imagine Blake Lively did it in kind of like what she believes to be a jokey way. We've seen Blake Lively try to make jokes that just come off cruel. And my guess is she tried to do that to Taylor. Like, yeah, I mean, if you support me publicly, we can probably settle this thing beforehand. And then we won't have to be exposed to a subpoena, which will share all of our text messages. And by the way, Justin Baldoni's side is saying, we don't even want to subpoena you for everything, Taylor Swift. We don't need all of that. We just need this extortion thing. Can we get that email? Like, that's what they want. And I'm sure Taylor Swift would rather cut off Blake Lively, and this will be the sort of reason how that is done. Now, there's a big question, actually, about what today is. Today is May 22nd, and it's the last day for Taylor Swift to file a motion to quash for her subpoena. Will she file this motion to quash? Will she comment at all through her legal representatives about that? Or will she let it go? Did she work something out with Brian Friedman where, I don't know, and again, this might be fan fiction, where there's some sort of gentleman's agreement, gentle ladies agreement, pop star agreement, where they're like, look, we're not going to try to depose you. We're not going to try to do any of this stuff. Just give us that email. Just give us a little bit, and that's all we need. Versus them kind of, because you could imagine if you're Taylor Swift, it's about damage control. It's about what can I give you without giving you things that are going to make me look bad. Now, the question is, it takes two to tango. Those text messages are on both sides of the phone line, as it were. So if Taylor Swift does agree to help out Baldoni's side, does that mean Blake Lively will go scorched earth on her? My guess, if you're smart, and Blake Lively, and I don't know if that's true, but if you're smart, you don't want to mess with Taylor Swift. She comes with an army, so you don't want to mess with her. I know Blake Lively's going to want to do self-preservation right now, but whatever she has on Taylor Swift, if it's irrelevant to this case, don't reveal that. Because everyone talks trash to their best friend, right? You talk to, this guy's the word. Any number of text messages could come out and you could look horrible over it. And that's kind of like a violation of the trust you feel with your close friends if she pulls that card, right? So either way, let's go back to Ask Two Lawyers.
That knows about, this scenario that they're alleging, that apparently there was maybe some trying to intimidate witnesses going on. And that would be a deposition that you would want to set up immediately and get to the bottom of, because if you have evidence that you can bring into court showing that one of the parties tried to intimidate a witness, I mean, that's going to be very powerful evidence.
And they haven't brought that in yet. So either A, Taylor Swift's side is dragging their feet, or Brian Friedman made that up. Now, I don't think he did because he signed an affidavit swearing that he wasn't making it up. But will they get that deposition of Taylor Swift's dad? We'll have to see. All right. In other news, we're going to get into some interesting stuff happening here. And this affects all of us. And as long as you pay taxes or don't, this affects you. Here's Representative Maxwell Frost explaining that what is going on right now in our country is the biggest transfer of wealth from the poor class to the billionaire class.
This is a moment I'm never going to forget, because tonight hundreds of Republican members of Congress are wanting to line up to vote for the biggest transfer of wealth from the working poor and the working class to billionaires and mega corporations that we've seen in this country's history. This is a deep moment of betrayal.
And by the way, if you aren't familiar with how this is going to affect your wallet, let's go to, here's the Tennessee Holler. They shared this clip here with an economist explaining how the House passes the sweeping domestic policy bill and how this tax cut on the ultra wealthy, if they did not do it, would have saved literally $750 billion for Medicaid, for people's health insurance, and all of that. Have a listen to this.
If you're in the top 20% of Americans, you're going to get roughly a 3.7% increase in your after-tax income, really all from these tax cuts. But if you go all the way to the bottom and everything in between essentially leads you to the bottom, if you're in the bottom 20%, you actually lose $800. Why do you lose $800?
And if you are poor, you cannot afford to lose another penny. You're trying to save money. You're trying to get your kid the dental work he needs, braces, this very simple stuff. You're trying to afford basic groceries. $800. I mean, most families, most people cannot afford a $400 emergency payment. We're talking $800 right here.
You get a very small tax cut, and you get a very large cut in Medicaid and these other benefits that we were just talking about that affects the 20% disproportionately. So this is a highly regressive bill that essentially favors the wealthy, doesn't do much for the middle class, and hurts the poor. And then if you want to see this in stark comparison, if we simply eliminated the tax cuts for people making over $500,000 a year, which is roughly what President Biden was proposing, it would save $1.1 trillion. That happens to be just slightly more than the Medicaid cuts and the food stamps, or SNAP cuts, if you will, put together.
So there it is. The tax cuts for people making over $500,000 are wiping out money that would go to the poor. I don't sign off on this. And if you live in a state that has a representative that is voting for this, you need to vote in somebody that will change this. Right now, it might be too late, but coming up on the next midterm election, you have the ability, if you live in one of those states, to vote them the f*** out of office. Because f*** these people, right? All right, we got to move it on to a real serious story here. This happened last night. A deadly shooting of 2 Israeli embassy staffers in D.C. I don't have all of the information yet. It's still coming in. But 2 Israeli embassy staff members were killed in a shooting outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. The killer, and I'm not going to share the video with you guys, but the killer identified himself immediately and was yelling "Free Palestine." And this is really, really sad here because these are 2 innocent lives that were actually, and again, no one, there should be no violence whatsoever. Hard stop. And when you see instances like this, where there's, political violence, really, it's senseless. It doesn't help the cause, and it just stokes more fear. We saw this with the arsonist that tried to take out Governor Shapiro. This has to be absolute. And again, there are people all over that are unhinged, but this has to stop. And here's your update.
And he says, "I did it. I did it for Gaza. Free Palestine." And he's chanting this. And then suddenly the police come in and they arrest him. We were meeting at the Capitol Jewish Museum to listen to a panel that was discussing how these different organizations from around the world and different faiths are working together to bring humanitarian aid into Gaza.
So most people are on the same page, which is what's happening in Gaza is terrible, and that the hostages that are still there is terrible, that Hamas is terrible. Multiple things are true that are terrible right now. And any criticism of the Israeli government isn't a criticism of Israelis or Jewish people or anything like that. We need to be able to speak truth to power, which is the government, without being labeled anti-Semitic, without harming innocent lives, as was happened here. I mean, this is an absolute tragedy. They say that this this man and his partner. I don't think they were engaged, but I think they were on the road to that. And their lives are gone. And for what? It doesn't get us closer to the solution. Now, I covered a couple days ago the UN story that has been redacted. We took down our social media posts that covered that. It doesn't change what is happening right now, which is that there is a humanitarian crisis. There is food not getting into Gaza for about 80 days. And the trucks of food that are coming in, they're getting searched so slowly that they're not even making it to the people that need it. This is happening. Here is a doctor in Gaza, a British doctor, explaining the situation.
If Cambodia was the killing fields, then Gaza now is the slaughterhouse. Well, it's another day of devastation here in Gaza. The stories coming from the north, absolutely horrific, particularly around the Indonesian hospital, but also...
You know why this is so touching? Gosh, that's the same brand of stroller that I have. And it takes moments like that where you can humanize people to realize how severe this is. When you look at the rubble and you see the dust and the dirt caked on people's faces, first of all, that's going to lead to terrible lifetime ailments, right? As we saw with the first responders in 9/11, it's going to lead to cancers and respiratory issues and all of that. But when you humanize people and see how basic their desire to survive, when you see that, and you hear from the doctors, we cannot stop talking about this. Multiple things can be true. It is devastating that an unhinged lunatic, an anti-Semite, murdered 2 people last night. That is devastating, and that needs to be addressed. And the fact that that's happening in the U.S. is appalling. And likewise, we have to feed these kids, because what happens when these wars continue to play out is that you wipe out one member of Hamas, they recruit 4 new members. The stats that have come in are that there has been 0 headway made with the eradication of Hamas. I mean, we saw this play out with our quote-unquote war on terror, a war that has not ended.
In Al-Mawasi area this morning, where 36 people were killed in the so-called safe zone, we've been operating all morning so far, all for explosive injuries. One young woman with leg fracture and a shoulder fracture and a large wound on her buttock, who came in yesterday and is not yet aware that everyone in her family was killed in the onslaught.
These doctors don't have to be there. And how privileged are we, from the comfort of our homes or the comfort of our cars, that we can listen to this and we can see this play out. And a lot of people have turned a blind eye. A lot of people like myself took a long time to get educated, have been called anti-Semitic, have been roasted, have been told we're spreading, propaganda or misinformation, or that's not what's happening, when in fact we know multiple things to be true. And I hate how redundant I have to be. Every single time I cover this, I have to condemn Hamas, obviously. I have to make sure people know that we're not criticizing humans, we're criticizing the government, those that are in power, not citizens. And we're certainly not accepting the fact that even if Hamas is digging tunnels beneath hospitals, that means we need to be bombing those hospitals. This person says, I want the hostages released, but I also don't want my patients getting blown up.
But I also don't want my patients getting blown up in their beds. The Israelis actually bombed the second floor of the hospital directly. They were apparently trying to kill somebody who does the finances for the political wing of Hamas or something. They also killed a 16-year-old patient of mine who I had just operated on a few days before and who actually would have gone home today.
I just came back from Alaska Hospital. And that hospital was bombed 7 times. So the bombing of hospitals is not new in this conflict.
And again, it's just a tragedy as we watch it play out. Here we have Ben from Ben & Jerry's. He was the co-founder, tells Chris Cuomo what a genocide really looks like.
What's happening in Gaza is horrible. They just agreed to restart the aid, and I've been critical of the stopping of aid and how necessary it is. But don't you have to give some space for the fact that Hamas, a terror organization, is still holding 6 people just about, and that they need to give them back if they want to have high ground, don't they?
Yes, the hostages need to be returned, but that's no justification to kill tens of thousands of children, old people, mothers, fathers, people just like us.
Well, just like us, some, yes. Others are aligned with a terror organization. I'm not talking about the kids. I'm talking about the people who are on the ground, who are adults in Gaza. And if it were America and they had 59 of our people and they were a terror organization, do you think the United States would be doing anything different than Israel is?
Boy, I would hope they'd be doing something different, because what's going on in Israel right now is genocide with our bombs. The American people have become complicit in the genocide that Israel is engaging in. And if it weren't for us providing the bombs, they wouldn't be able to do it.
Well, they have a lot of their own weapons. You know that, Ben. I know you're very sophisticated about this stuff. But don't you believe that genocide, obviously there's a legal standard, but do you target things? Do you avoid things? Do you pace things? Do you allow any aid the way Israel has if it's really a genocide? We've seen what that looks like in other situations. It doesn't look like this.
Imagine 2 million people not getting food, sealed off. Now imagine you let 100 trucks in. Are you kidding me? That does nothing. There are 6,000 trucks that need to go in and start feeding people immediately. And the Israeli government has said evacuate from northern Gaza to southern Gaza. A lot of these people are so malnourished, they can barely walk. And even when they're evacuating to safe zones, they get bombed over there too. So this idea that, hey, just go down there and get it. Like, we need to fully contextualize what this means. And yes, there are bad people. Hamas is a bad organization that essentially has been part of, through the terrorist attack that happened several years ago and other, monstrosities, has been using their own people as shields for their terror. Absolutely. But what's the result? You just wipe everybody out?
Boy, it sure looks like it to me. I mean, let me think. All the hospitals have been destroyed. All the universities have been destroyed. The schools have been destroyed. The housing has been destroyed. And tens of thousands of people have been killed.
I hate that we need a guy with an ice cream company, Ben & Jerry's. He has since sold it. I hate that we need people like that to be the ones that stand up. Now, people are saying, oh, wow, all the influencers are coming to the table finally talking about it. And by the way, I saw people in my own audience, God bless you, people in my own audience calling out podcasters for sharing misinformation, that the UN said 48 hours or 14,000 babies will die. But listen, that story came out of the mouth of the UN. It was also shared by every, vetted news organization. So it's not like people are sharing QAnon misinformation from your Aunt Betty's Facebook account, right? That story was wrong. But it doesn't mean that what they meant to say, and clearly they got it wrong, was that 14,000 kids, if nothing happens, will have malnutrition. And people are already starving to death. I mean, they're not being fed. Millions of people. There are millions of people that are not being fed. They don't have access to healthcare and all these other issues. They are dying regardless if that story got it wrong. We'll continue to try our best to get as accurate news as possible. And if we have to retract a story, we will. But that doesn't mean we're going to sit on our hands and not talk about what's happening out there. This is huge, and this needs everybody to be as educated as possible about. That doesn't mean you hate on your fellow citizens or the Jewish population. Absolutely not. Because there's plenty of people abroad that don't like what's going on with our policies, and there's plenty of people here that don't agree with those policies. We're all humans. Everyone, in the end of the day, is trying their best with the information they have, and we don't need to react and live in a world based on fear. We see the reality. We see what's happening. We won't be silenced. Keep spreading the word. Keep talking about it. Keep sharing love. We need it now more than ever. We'll be back in the morning to continue to discuss all the day's topics. We'll see you then. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.